Grit and vision working in lockstep puts you on the path to your full potential. Old school grit, new world ideas. Morgan Stanley.
Ladies, you're in for a treat. The Carla Harris is here to share how she became the impactful leader she is and how you can hone your skills to become more effective and influential. She's joined by a fellow corporate powerhouse, the president of packaging and specialty plastics for Dow. Please welcome Carla Harris and our moderator, Karen S. Carter.
Good morning, women of power. Good morning, women of power. You all should see the view from up here. It is amazing. Hey, listen, I just want to start off with a couple of comments. I mean, you know, dreams really do come true, because the woman I get the privilege to interview this morning has been a role model and an inspiration to me for many, many years. She is a trailblazer. She is a business icon, and she is a Black woman. And for those of you who have been working as long as I have, and I know there's probably only a few of y'all in the room, we haven't always had examples of successful executives who looked like us. But it was Carla Harris who we saw in Black enterprise. I mean, we always had Carla Harris. And the list of her accomplishments is long and impressive. Not only has she risen to the top of one of the world's premier investment banks, Morgan Stanley, but she also serves on various boards. She's a podcaster, an author. President Obama named her the chair of his National Women's Business Council. Y'all, and if all of that wasn't enough, she's also an extraordinary gospel singer who has performed at the Apollo Theater and at Carnegie Hall. Despite all she has accomplished, Carla Harris comes from humble beginnings and has not forgotten it. And she will tell you that before she rose to the heights of investment banking, she first learned how to handle money working at the McDonald's counter. I know there's somebody out there talking about, I bought a Big Mac from Carla Harris. Even after going to Harvard and making a name for herself in New York City, she always stayed close to her grade school friends in Jacksonville, Florida, who she refers to as her ride or die people. She even married her high school sweetheart. Carla Harris is fearless, courageous, and being the first or the only has never deterred her. It has only fueled her fire, and you're gonna see some fire on the stage today. And as she was knocking down walls, kicking in doors, and breaking through ceilings, she did it with style, grace, authenticity, and unapologetically so that the rest of us could follow. And you know, the first time I got to see her was at a conference about a decade ago, and she took to the stage, and y'all, she set it on fire. I mean, you don't just watch Carla Harris, you experience Carla Harris. So women of power, I invite you to lean in, lean forward, and get ready, because we are about to experience a force of nature, a groundbreaking businesswoman, and someone who is certain to set this stage on fire. Please join me in welcoming the legendary Carla Harris. So I want to start off by talking to you about the concept of winning. Winning, because the titles of all of your books, not just one book, all of your books are about winning. Expect to win, Strategize to Win, and Lead to Win, which you wanted to say something about the last book, because I think Morgan Stanley kind of gave some folks a gift.
Okay, so girl, let me get it in, because I'm about to bust up here.
Yeah.
First of all, thank you for that amazing introduction. But good morning, Black Enterprise Women of Power. I am so happy to be here, and I thank Butch and the rest of the leadership team at Black Enterprise for having me back, because every time I come to this conference, I walk with walking out of here with my feet off the ground, because it is so uplifting. And I also want to say thank you to Morgan Stanley for making sure that every single one of you have a copy of my new book, Lead to Win. Thank you. And I also have to say a special thank you to my homies at Morgan Stanley and Walmart and Cummins and MetLife. Woo! So I had to get that out the way, Karen. All righty. So, and I also want to encourage you all, when we get to the Q&A, to ask anything that's on your mind. After 36 years of being on the street and playing with the boys, there's nothing you could ask me where I will not be able to give you a prescriptive answer. And if you don't believe me, try me when we get to the Q&A.
Try her, y'all.
Okay.
Try her.
All righty. So this concept of winning, I talk about winning because I want to keep it front and center in people's minds, because there's so many distractions when you are on the journey that will deter you from understanding your own power, that will deter you from your own goals, that will deter you from even seeking out new opportunities, as our last panel with, Tracy and Lisa and Rochelle were just talking about. So I like to keep people focused on winning, and winning is personal. Everybody has a definition of what winning looks like. And the mistake that you can make is by living your life according to somebody else's report card. Okay? And so often we don't feel like we're winning because we're not doing this. We're not there yet. But what mattered to you? Or are you comparing yourself to someone else and they're prosecuting their journey? They're living along their report card. So you need to take the time to understand what winning means to you. So for me in my professional life, winning always meant going as high as I could possibly go. In my academic life, if there was an A, I had to get it, right? If it's in my personal life, it's about having a relationship that matters to me. My significant other does not need to look like yours, yours, or yours. And what I'm willing to do in my household, I might be willing to do in my household, and I shouldn't feel less than because my person's not doing what your person was doing. You got to understand what's important to you. And so often, Karen, we don't take the time to ask that question. And we are never happy or satisfied because I'm comparing myself to your report card instead of mine.
So if we could just stick there for a second, because, you talk a lot about mentors and sponsors, and I think sometimes people get those two things mixed up, but I think both are essential to winning. So can you talk a little bit about the difference, why they matter, and in terms of Black women in particular, how should we engage in those relationships?
Absolutely. So as I write about my first book, Expect to Win, and I did this because people are confused. The mentor is the person that you can tell the good, the bad, and the ugly to. So by definition, it needs to be somebody that knows you very well, and it needs to be somebody that you trust. I couldn't just say, oh, Karen's going to be my mentor, despite the fact that she has been extraordinarily successful in what she's done. If she doesn't know me that well, she cannot be a great mentor to me. Now, in my parlance, she can be an outstanding advisor. And an advisor is anybody in your organization that has the intellect and or the experience to answer any discrete question. Oh, Karen, what assignment should I take next? Oh, Karen, what is it like to work with Don? Oh, Karen, they offered me this. Should I do that? She knows enough about the organization to be able to answer those questions. But when it comes to mentoring you, a mentor's job is to give you tailored advice, tailored specifically to you and to your career aspirations. If I know Rochelle and I know Karen, and they both want to become executive vice presidents, and I'm a good mentor, I give them two different strategies because they're two different women. And my job is to give them tailored advice that they can successfully execute. The mentor does not need to be within your organization, nor do they need to look like you, but they must understand your context. They must understand the context that you're working in order to give you that tailored advice that you can successfully execute. But here's the deal. You can survive a long time in your career without a mentor, but you will not ascend in any environment without the sponsor. The sponsor is the most important person in your career because that is the person that is carrying your paper into the room. That room where all of the important decisions about your career will be made, that room where you are not present. That is the room where your compensation is decided. You're not in that room. That's the room where your promotions are decided. You're not in that room. And that's the room where new assignments are given out, and you're not in that room. So the sponsor is the person that is spending their valuable political and social capital on you. And there needs to be a good reason why they're spending this capital on you, and you need to be able to articulate why you are worthy. Now, Black women can generally find a mentor because we also know that mentors don't have to, as I said, be within your organization. It can be a good friend who has your best interest at heart. That person who will put the mirror up when you start saying, they did this, they did that, blah, blah, blah. And they'll put the mirror up and say that again, right? So that you can hear yourself what part you played in that. So your mentor can also be a peer. It can be somebody else. They just need to understand the context. The sponsor, on the other hand, must be within that organization. They must have a seat at the decision-making table, and they must have some juice. So when you're thinking about who could be my sponsor, think about somebody who has exposure to your work. Because if they have no exposure to your work, they'll have no credibility in that room. Because everybody knows that person who's pounding the table for you, they don't work with you. So they'll have no credibility. Does not need to be your boss, just needs to have some visibility into your work. Number two, they must have a seat at the decision-making table. And if you don't know who has a seat at the decision-making table in your organization, ask someone. You simply ask someone, because so often we're trying to figure it out, or we're hoping somebody will tell us. Exercise your power, your voice, and ask someone. I had to do that. I was up for a big promotion, and I kept trying to figure out who was on the promotion committee. So I went to another woman who was already a manager director. I said, who is on this promotion committee? She said, come here. Took me into a conference room, sat me down, took out a piece of paper, and drew the table. Drew the chairs. She said, here is who's on the promotion committee, and this one sits next to this one sits here, this one always sits here. And so I walked out of that room and I knew who was on the promotion committee. So when you're trying to figure out who that sponsor is, exposure to your work, has a seat at the decision-making table, and has a respected voice, i.e. has some juice. Now, why do we have trouble getting a sponsor? Oh, okay, let me call a thing a thing. We have trust issues.
I got him.
Can I get an amen?
Yeah, amen.
So the very people that we need to approach, we somehow can't quite do that because we don't trust that they will say yes. We don't trust that they will give us the real deal. We don't trust putting ourselves out there for the potential rejection. There's not a person in this room that hasn't been disappointed. Been there, done that, got the t-shirt. So if somebody that you ask to be your sponsor tells you no, then you say, I certainly appreciate your answer and I respect it, but it would be helpful for me to understand why. Because that'll help me in the next conversation I have with someone about sponsoring me. It would be so helpful. And most people will respond to your request for help. And if they don't, there is one answer. Next.
So when I signed up to do this, I didn't think she was going to step on my toes. So we're going to just keep trust issues. We're just going to keep moving on, keep it moving on.
We have them. Yeah. I could call it because it was me too.
Yeah.
If anybody that looks like somebody that has done you wrong, you ascribe that sin to everybody else that looks like them. And that's, ooh, I heard that, y'all. And that's what stops you from opening up that part of yourself that would be attractive to somebody to build that sponsor relationship with you. Let me make it plain. Proximity, getting close to someone, breeds familiarity. Familiarity will create support.
What about, let's just stay on that for a second, mentor sponsors that don't look like us? Because I find sometimes that we gravitate towards those that do, and they gravitate towards us. So mentors and sponsors that don't look like us.
Yes, and in most of the organizations that we all are a part of, many of your mentors and sponsors won't look like you.
Because they're sitting around that table that you drew.
They're sitting around that table, and if you heard what Tracy and Lisa said, there's not that many people around that table. So by definition, you're probably going to have to find a sponsor in the beginning of your career anyway that doesn't look like you. Right? And the ones that look like you also have to be honest. If we're going to call a thing, some of them are not willing to spend the power on you, right? So, don't put yourself in that one space where you cut off your own opportunity because you're not building those relationships more broadly.
Yeah. Around the table, you are around the table. First, often only. There's so many women in this room that are often the first and the only. Blessing or a burden?
Oh, it's a blessing. As my colleagues said before us, and they told you, and I'm going to tell you again, if you're the only person that looks like you in the room, you're the only person that looks like you in the room.
Yeah.
Because you know what that means, ladies? You do not have to compete for attention.
Yeah.
Everybody's looking at you. Right? So you don't have to fight in there to get in for the conversation. They're all waiting to see what you're going to say.
Yeah.
And all you need to do is to deliver your excellence into that opportunity. And you walked in the room with excellence. That's how you got there. So don't forget that. Don't abdicate your power by being distracted by the thoughts of, I'm the only woman in the room. Or I'm the only black person in the room. Oh, I know they're looking at me some kind of way. Unless you are clairvoyant, you don't know what they're thinking. Right?
Yeah.
So you go in there and expect to win. But you go in there and you deliver your excellence. And here's the thing. I know sometimes you will see people that you can tell they have low expectations of you. Those are the best kind of customers.
Yeah.
Because the lower their expectations are about you, the more you're going to blow them away.
Yeah.
Right? And I have seen many, many, many folks like that over the course of my career. And, now I can smell them walking down the hall. And when that happens, I say, oh, here we go. I'm going to have you right here. Come to mama. Right?
Yeah.
But take that approach because you have that.
Yeah. I hope y'all catching these pearls, Carla's pearls. Do not abdicate your power. Do not. I'm gonna be eating on that for the next couple weeks. Let's talk about. We always talk about bring your whole soul to work. Bring your. She was talking about the crop tops. We were in the back saying, I'm saying don't bring the crop top to work. Leave some of yourself at home.
We were screaming no.
Do not bring the crop top. But you were recently on Adam Grant's podcast, and you were talking about that Morgan Stanley was a place that you felt like you could be yourself, and that was really important to you.
Yes.
If you were going to spend your time at a place. So can you talk about that, but then also talk to the rest of us about what are some signs, what are some things that would indicate to us in our organizations that we can or we cannot be ourselves?
Okay, you should assume that you can. So I wouldn't spend my time looking for different signs. Let's talk about what it means to bring all of yourself into any environment. Number one, the way you do it is to know who you are. And I don't say that lightly because pre-COVID, we were all running around that we failed to say, who am I today relative to who I was in 2012 versus who I was in 2019? And if you haven't done it recently, you must. Because there's not a person on the planet that wasn't impacted by the COVID-19 crisis or by, obviously, what we all witnessed with the murder of George Floyd and others during that period, as Lisa said. So who are you today? The second piece is now understand that we're all multifaceted. There's not just one you. There's an intellectual you, there's an argumentative you, there's an inquisitive you, there's a frivolous you, there's a hey now you. We're all multifaceted. Understand that and embrace that. And the third piece of bringing all of you into any room, now you relax. Now you can relax and feel the energy in the room. And you will know in that moment which facet of you can authentically connect with that person on the other side of the conversation, or the 15 people in that boardroom, or the 1,800 people that are in the auditorium. You can feel the energy and you will know. And you want to be free to do that because you can't anticipate where people are going to come from. And all of it's you, so you're not being inauthentic. And many young professionals make the mistake because they say, well, I got to show all of who I am, and I don't take that, and blah, blah, blah. You're wearing all of that on your sleeve. And it doesn't take showing all of the facets on your sleeve in order to be inauthentic. The joke I like to tell, because I'm from the South, so I like to pick on people from the South, is I sometimes do business in Birmingham, Alabama. Mm-hmm. Yeah, Birmingham in the house, but y'all know what I mean by the boys in Birmingham, right? So I know when I go into a Birmingham boardroom that those boys cannot take full frontal Carla.
Full frontal.
So they get Carla Light, right? Now, Carla Light is just as much a part of me as full frontal, but I'm free enough to adjust to the room and can feel the energy in the room, because guess what? I might be in Birmingham, but that boardroom could be full of New Yorkers, right? So I'm staying agile enough so that I can feel the energy in the room and know which Carla. It's all Carla, but to know which Carla is going to connect most authentically and most effectively and impactfully with that audience.
Yeah, true story. I went to Howard University. I don't know if there's any Bisons in the house. But when I first went to Dow, I wore a sweatshirt to the company picnic that said naturally black, no artificial coloring. And there was, true story, there was a black executive, his name is Tim King, he's retired, long retired, he actually texted me this morning. He pulled me to the side and said, young woman, what makes you think they don't know you black? Like, you know, yeah, what makes you think they don't already know you are black?
And why did he ask the question?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Uh-huh. Yeah. My other toe hurts now. Okay. Moving along. Listen, there, you know, my mama used to say you have to work twice as hard because you're black and a woman. There was a executive earlier this week that I heard say it this way, and she said it often feels like as black women we are expected to scale tall buildings in a single bound. Uh-huh. What do you say?
Yes. So thank you so much for that question, because I want to speak to this audience about that. We were all, many of us, and certainly women in this room of a certain age, boomers, older Xers in particular, were told exactly that. You have to work twice as hard to get half as much. Do not embrace that adage. I understand. Yeah, I understand where it came from, and that was a real reality out there. But we have at least advanced enough where you can deploy strategy versus that extra energy. No question about it. So, and we also are told that there's not much room at the top, Karen. And that too is a straight out lie, right? But if I can make you think that it's me or you, then I turn my energies into stopping you. And that's part of the issue that we have had for a long time. You need to understand the key success factors of any role. That's the first thing you need to do. What does it mean to win? And for those of you who are looking for a job, when you interview, they always ask you at the end of the interview, do you have any questions? Even if you have no questions, you ask two things. Number one, give me the profile of a superstar in this environment. When you guys call somebody a superstar, what does that look like? And they're going to give you adjectives. Now you know what they value, and your behavior should be consistent with those adjectives. The second question you need to ask, is give me the profile of the last person you fired. When somebody doesn't make it in your organization, why don't they make it? And they're also going to give you a description of people. So now you know what you need to avoid. When you start your job, and even now in your job, if you get a new assignment, the question you need to sit down and say, well, thank you for your confidence. I'm excited about this, but tell me how you define success. What does success look like? What needs to happen in order for you to say this is an A+? And why is that important for you to ask when you start a new project or you're with a new boss? Sometimes you will learn that this person doesn't have any idea of what they're expecting. And if they don't know what success looks like, you can't maximize your success. So whenever you approach somebody with that question, always have your own answer in your mind about what it looks like, because even though they can't respond, everybody can react. So now you say, hey, Joe, you're not sure what success looks like? I thought about this before I started this meeting. I'm thinking it looks like A, B, C, D, and E. I feel like if I deliver that, that's an A+. But I want to understand how you're feeling about that. Now Joe has to say, oh, I agree with A, we got to do that. We got to do B. C, I don't care about. D, don't bother. But I like E, and maybe you want to add F and G. So now you walk out of there knowing what you need to deliver. Not twice as much. Deliver this, right? And then notice what I said at the end of, if I do this, that's an A+, right? A+ means I get paid, right? Is this what you're looking at for me to get promoted? We get there. Ladies, you have to get comfortable having the conversation about your career because there's one person that has responsibility for your career, and that's you. With all due respect to HR professionals in the room, it's not their job to manage your career. It is your job. And you have to articulate that. Right? You have to let people know that you care about your career, you care about the trajectory, and you care about the money.
That's right.
And women, white, black, blue, or green, don't like to talk about money. I'm not sure why, but we generally don't like to talk about money. And listen, don't take it personally. If I can pay you less than what you're worth, I'm gonna do that all day long.
That's right.
That's good for the margins. So don't hold that person responsible because you failed to have the conversation.
That's right.
Right?
That's right.
And I know it's hard. It's hard to have that money conversation, but practice. Practice in the mirror. And one of the ways that I got comfortable with it is one of my colleagues, God bless him, told me one day, I go in every day and tell them what I want to get paid. I mean, every year, I go tell them what I want to get paid. And Karen, my response was, and what language do you use? I couldn't imagine doing that. But as you know, investment bankers get paid in a range. So let's just say hypothetically, the range was 150 to 300 that year. And I said, Carla Harris, if you don't say something and you get paid $150,000 and the range was 150 to 300, is your fear worth $150,000? Right. And I said to myself exactly what y'all thinking. So I got in the mirror and I practiced. I want to get paid. I want to get paid. I want to get paid. You know, I kept, even me, I practiced until I came up with a script that I felt like I could deliver.
And did you bring the full frontal, Carla Harris?
I did, full frontal.
Okay.
I went in there, and remember, this is New York, and full frontal. So I went in with the boys, and I said, listen, I really want to get paid at the top of my class this year. It's really important. I had a terrific year, and it's really important to me that the firm recognizes that at the highest level for my class. Now, my understanding is the way that compensation is set up is first how you do, second how the department does, and third, you know, how the firm does. I can't speak to these last two, but I had an amazing year. And it was important to me that you knew that I want to have that recognized, and I got out of there quickly. Now, I want to ask you, ladies, did I get paid? Absolutely. Let me tell you something else. Every year that I have failed to have the conversation, I could see it on the page. It's not a one and done. You have to make sure you articulate that it is important. And people will huff and puff. They will try to make you feel uncomfortable. But as I said in the green room, push one more time, right? Because what I learned, and my one regret, is that I went to the mat for something. The person said, no. And I couldn't decide at that moment. Well, should I push it one more time? You know, maybe I piss him off, So I didn't. And to this day, I know that if I pushed one more time, he had nothing. He had no comeback. He had no defense. So I tell you, push one more time.
Push one more time. Push one more time. Another Carla Squirrel. I want to get paid. I want to get paid. Listen, I want to talk about your high school sweetheart. I want to pivot for a second because I think it's important for us in these rooms to talk about relationships. You know, one of my favorite quotes from you is you said this: if a guy or gal thinks you are too much for them, they're right. If a guy or gal thinks you are too much for them, they're right. And so one of the other things I think we talk about in our circles is that it is difficult to find a partner that's not intimidated by our success. Difficult. You know, I'm divorced, and that was my experience in my first marriage. And for anybody that's experienced divorce, it's I failed, what are they going to say, you know, all these things. But it came down to that. And fortunately, I'm remarried to an amazing partner, you know, who celebrates my success and understands that it's our success. So how have you had such a long, successful marriage, and a long, successful career.
Yeah, I'll tell you, I walk my own talk. I don't give anybody any pearls that I'm not willing to execute. And I've felt for a very long time, you know, do not apologize for your success. And if you can't, there's no language you can use, and there's no number of times that you can use to try to make somebody feel comfortable about your success. If they don't see it and celebrate it, they're not your blessing, right? And I figured that out as a young woman in my 20s when I went to, well, actually, I started experiencing it in college. You know, people used to say, because I went to Harvard undergrad and Harvard Business School, and back then, a lot of the women that were saying, so they would meet a guy, and they were like, where you go to school? And they were like, in Boston, in Cambridge. And I did that in the beginning as well, because people would run if you said Harvard. But man, after my junior year, I worked so hard to try to make these lists. I was like, Harvard, Harvard, yeah. And then so by the time I came to New York and I was experiencing that again, even though I had a lot of contemporaries that looked like me, black men who were also on the street, it was also a thing. And I just decided I'm not going to apologize for my success. You know, I've worked too hard to get here. So you do have to have patience and look for the right partner, somebody who's willing to be a partner. That to me is what evenly yoked mean. It's not about even W-2s, right? It's really about—
Say that again. Can you louder for the people in the back? Yeah.
It's not about even W-2s.
Yes.
You have to value everything that that person is bringing to the table. If that person is ready and has dinner on the table, if that person is ready to rub your funky feet, if that person is, you know, the person that always organizes things for the house. You know, I say to people who say, well, it's not even a yoke because he only makes so and so. I say, I want you to put a number. How much is it worth that he put the garbage out? How much is it worth that he calls somebody every time something breaks in the house or he fixes it himself? Put a number on it now. Put a number on it. What about when the baby's crying and he's right? Put a number on it. You know, talk about what he does for you as a person, as a woman. Put a number on it, right? And by the time you add all of those things up, you start realizing there is some value that's being created that's not reflected on that W-2, right? So it's about understanding, again, going back to where we started this conversation, what you need and what winning is to you and what works in your household. And my husband and I had one conversation about the inequity in our W-2s, and we had just started dating. And this is somebody I've known, by the way, since I was 12. And this is the guy who took me to my senior prom in high school. He went to the Army, I went to Harvard, our paths diverged, and then they came back again. And, you know, after about 2 months of reuniting and dating long distance at that time, I guess he did a little homework and he realized what I did, because he just saw Carla, which is what I liked about him. He saw the 12-year-old Carla. Don't be distracted by the other stuff, because I'm still the 12-year-old Carla. So he called one night, he said, you know, I've been doing a little work, and you know, there's a big difference between what you do and what you make and what I do and what I make. I say, look here, let me just tell you something. If you are bothered by what I do and what I make, and oh, by the way, where I'm going, because you haven't seen anything yet, then I'm not going to try to convince you, right? I'm going to say this to you one time. I'm still the Carla that you knew. Have I accomplished a lot of things? Yes, and that's all great, and I'm grateful for it. Thank you, Jesus. I said, but I'm Carla. Now, if you see that girl, we can talk. But if you're getting distracted by all the accoutrement, then, you know, it's been nice talking to you. That was the last time we had that conversation.
Hey, ladies, we're gonna go to Q&A, so get your questions ready for those that are coming up. And as we get ready for that, we're gonna do a quick lightning round. So if you have questions, please start stepping to the mic. So I'm gonna do a quick lightning round with you if you're game.
Okay.
If you could have dinner with anyone dead or alive, who would that be?
Martin Luther King Jr.
If you have 5 minutes of free time to relax, what do you do?
Sing.
What song is on the top of your playlist right now?
Amazing Grace.
I introduced you to the folks earlier, but if you only had one word to describe Carla Harris, what would that be?
Powerful.
Last question. Is Carla Harris good, or is she lucky?
Oh, no, she's great.
Yeah. Yes. Yes, first question.
All right. Hi, my name is Janelle Fraser. I met you in Morgan Stanley when I was an intern in 2015. You was on a Black History Month panel. And I'm glad you still have the fire today because I get to ask you this question. So, how do you deal with adversity just breaking into the business? What advice would you give to a woman in a more junior management role on their journey to C-suite?
So first of all, go back to what I said earlier. Understand the key success factors that are in that job and make sure you deliver. There's no substitute for delivering. Second of all, while you're doing that, make sure that you build relationships. Because so often as women, we hug the performance currency. That's making sure that you deliver that which was asked of you in lieu of making sure that we're generating some relationship currency. Because if you're really good, you're really going to need somebody to speak on your behalf in those rooms. And also, if there's an issue, if you're on the bubble with respect to how they view you, you're going to need somebody to speak for you in those rooms. So that's what I say to junior women now. Don't just come and put your head down and work hard. Immediately start building those relationships. And the easiest way to do it is to think about the people who brought you into the firm. Somebody recruited you. So go back to them and say, hey, you know I got to build a network here. So give me 2 people you think I ought to get to know. And as you spend about 4 meetings with those 2 people, then you say, give me 2 people you think I ought to know. Right? And you start building your network that way. And it's all connected now because these people are making the warm introductions for you.
I like that.
Okay?
Keep going.
Got another beautiful woman of power coming to the mic. Looks like there's 2.
First of all, to the queen.
Oh, girl, please.
No, seriously.
No,
I
I'm
feel
not the queen.
No, it was a deliverance. It was a deliverance. I went to church. My name is Onika Maffei. I just wanted to know, please name a mistake or a failure you feel like you made in your life that provided the greatest lesson for you, and what was that lesson?
Yes, I'll tell you one that actually came in later in my career. And this is a good one for all of us to remember. And that's being willing to make people changes quickly. You know, and I couldn't figure out why I was having an issue with that. And I realized that it was cultural. Because as a black woman, again, going back to what we were told when we were growing up, we were told you only got 1 shot. Don't screw it up. You don't get as many chances as everybody else. So that made me very careful with the chances that I did take, but also it made me feel like that's not fair. Everybody makes a mistake. Yeah. So when I get to the position of being able to manage and lead people, I'm not going to just, restrict people to 1 shot. But the problem is, if you keep giving people, especially people that you like, a chance after chance after chance after chance, here's what another powerful woman, Ursula Burns, said to me that somebody said to her, that when you fail to change a bad leader, you hold the rest of the organization hostage. Right? And, it was a deliverance. And I realized that cultural, and she told me, she said, I had the same issue. So that's why I feel like it might have been cultural for us. So when you have a great team and you have somebody that is not leading or collaborating and playing with the team in the way that you want, you have to make the changes that you need to make. Right? And that was a huge lesson for me because I feel that I'm a really great leader and I'm a good people person and I believe in giving people chances, but you got to be clear on what those guardrails are. Huge leadership lesson for me.
Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Shantice Jenkins Floyd and I am one of 116 women here from Travelers.
Oh, go Travelers!
And I want to take a point of personal privilege to say thank you, Carla Harris.
Thank you, Soror.
For your pearls of wisdom. And I want to touch upon some might say a taboo topic. I'm a firm believer in the adage that your gift will make room for you. And when I mentor others, my mentality is there is room for us all.
Yes.
But how do you strategically deal with the sister who is your sister as she's climbing the ladder, but once she gets there, believes that there's only room for me?
Okay. So, Soror.
She scooted up to the edge of a chair.
Soror, what you do is you bless her anyhow.
Yeah.
Okay? Why? Because your promotion will not come from her. your promotion will come from him.
Yeah. Yes. Thank you, Lord. Yeah. Thank you, Lord. You know, one of the, as the next woman comes, one of the proudest moments in my career is when I moved from, I was the CHRO and Chief Inclusion Officer at Dow. I moved back into a business role. There were two amazing people, extremely, just amazing, talented people that replaced me, and they just happened to be black women. Both of them happened to be black women. One of them is in the audience today, Dr. Alveda Williams. And so that point about there is room for more than one of us at the top. It's about sending the elevator back down, right? And sitting down and saying, here's where they sit.
Right.
You know, here are the rules of the game, and here's how you play it.
Right. And for those senior women, like the one that my soror just described, that have the ability to bring more up, and for whatever reason, you're choosing not to use that power, remember that the way that you grow your power is to give it away. That's the point, first point I want to make. But the second point I'm going to make is you will not always be in a position of power, but you may choose to stay on the playing field. And the very person that you are choosing not to invest in, they will get to the top. And they may have the ability to let you play on the playing field a little bit longer.
That's right.
Right? So the last thing you want is to have people that you fail to invest in have that decision to move you out of your seat.
Hey, soror.
Hey, soror.
I was told to be brief, but I want to give the biggest shout out to Carla Harris from her Morgan Stanley sisters in front of the 1,600 people in attendance today. Carla has been a mentor. Carla has been a sponsor. Carla has been a role model for all of us. Carla was the first black woman MD at Morgan Stanley, promoted in 1998. Carla has blazed the trail for the 73 other black MDs there, especially the women. And so on behalf of the 68-odd women here from Morgan Stanley, MDs, EDs, VPs, at all levels, we thank you. We thank you. We thank you for everything that you have given us. Even when you didn't know it, we were watching you. You have been a role model to us. We were praying for you.
Thank you.
You were shaping our careers. And I just want you to know, we want you to have your flowers. We want you to take your flowers in front of this whole
I'll take it, girl.
Audience. And we are here because of you. I am because of you. We are because of you.
Thank you.
That is beautiful. So we have time for one more. We have time for one more question. One more question. Yes.
And then I want to say one last thing when she finishes. Okay.
Okay, thank you. First of all, of course, honored to meet you and great job on this panel. My name is Amia. I work with the Stephen Marjorie Harvey Foundation. And I just want to know, have you ever seen, I'm sure people approach you, for funding all the time, approach Morgan Stanley. What's the biggest mistake you've seen from nonprofits, coming to a larger organization, trying to raise funds for their programming?
Oh, thank you so much for that question.
Thank you.
It's not being clear on what the funder cares about. So if you're in a nonprofit and you're going to pitch somebody, make sure you understand what's their thing. Is it children's health? Is it education? Is it the arts? Figure out what their big thrust is. There's many corporations that give to a lot of things, but there's generally one thing that's their real thrust. And when you come in to pitch them, make sure that you're thinking about a partnership or a product or something that you can do as a pilot. They love pilots first. As a pilot that fits with whatever their thrust is. But you make it easy to say no when you go in and you're talking about the arts and all they really care about is, functional skills or educate. You make it easy to tell you no, right? So make sure you understand what their thrust is and speak in their language, right? Even if your thing is not quite there, make sure you acknowledge that you understand what they do care about, but why you're here talking to them about that, all right? So let me say, she said we were down to the last question. There's one thing that I wanted to say that I haven't had a chance to say. Ladies, this is an extraordinary time right now. Despite how things feel out there and people are turning their attention away from what happened with the terrible murder of George Floyd, and I shared this with Butch in the green room, we have to keep the conversation vibrant. Now is the time for you to really assert yourselves in your organizations. Why? Because nobody has the playbook on how things ought to manifest on the other side of a global pandemic. By definition, nobody has the playbook because nobody has ever lived on the other side of a pandemic. So now is the time, as people are collaborating, trying to figure out how to manage hybrid work, trying to figure out how to engage with clients, trying to figure out how to get employees back. Now is the time for you to assert your voice. Remember, your voice is at the heart of your power. Do not lose this moment and allow somebody to dictate to you what needs to happen when you have the opportunity to design. That's all I had to say. Thank you, Karen.
Women of Power, join me in thanking the phenomenal Carla Harris.
I know the energy in here is amazing, but if you could just stick with us for a couple more minutes. Thank you, Carla and Karen, for your awe-inspiring conversation. One of our sisters has been separated from her purse. So, Letitia Renee Blaze Stewart, if you are listening, your purse has been found and it can be picked